The other day we were talking about how much you really liked that day we went to Books A Million, and we read parts of different books and stuff to you, and you liked it. And I don't know. Right now, I just want to read. I might put this on YouTube. I might not. I might send it to you. I don't know, but I just want to read to you. This is chapter 1 of my favorite book. Search for God Knows What. It's called Fine Wine: The Failure of Formulas. Some time ago, I attended a seminar for Christian writers. It was in a big hotel down south, and hotels always make me uncomfortable because the bedding is so fluffy and the television swivels, and who makes coffee in the bathroom? But I felt that I needed to be at this seminar. I was wondering how exactly to write a book for a Christian market, a book that people would actually read. I'd written a book several years before, and it didn't sell. It was a road trip narrative about me, a friend, and God, and how we traveled across the country in a Volkswagen van, smoking pipes and picking fights with truckers. God wasn't actually a character in the book, the way my friend and I were. God more or less played himself up in heaven, sending down puzzling wisdom and answers to prayers every 100 miles or so. But even though the story had God in it, which I believe made it prime for Christian bookstores, sales were less than holy. The book limped along for about a year and then suddenly died. God led the publisher to take the book out of print, and about the same time sales dipped into negative figures. The publisher called. The publisher called and asked if I wanted to buy a few thousand copies for myself at 12 cents each, and I ended up buying 4. I believe the rest of the books were sold in convenience store distributors who shelved them next to the $3 romance novels at the back of the potato chip aisle. The only positive thing that happened in all of this was that for the next year or so I received enjoyable and sultry emails from women who had recently begun to consider themselves spiritual. And while I certainly enjoy the correspondence, I still keep in touch with many of these women today. The career path was not as receptible as I would have liked. I've always wanted to be a sophisticated Christian writer, and not somebody who has books on the closeout aisle at Paid Pantry. That is why Plaid Pantry. That is why I signed up for this seminar, the one I was telling you about, and was in a hotel with a bathroom/cafes. I arrived the evening before, and so the morning of the seminar I woke up very early, about 6. I couldn't fall back to sleep. I opened the curtains and watched planes land at the Memphis airport for an hour or so, trying to guide them in with my mind and that sort of thing. And when I went into the bathroom and sat down and had some coffee, I read the paper, and after an hour I started getting dressed, and the whole time I was ironing my clothes I was wondering whether this would be the weekend I would be discovered, whether this would be the start of a long career writing adventurous, life-changing books for my fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. I sat on the edge of the bed in my suit and tie and watched television for an hour. Katie Couric was interviewing a fellow who had written a book about how Donald Rumsfeld was actually the Antichrist. And I confess, I practiced answering all her questions, knowing that I too would someday be interviewed by Katie Couric. You really make Mr. Rumsfeld out to be a monster, Mr. Miller. This seems unfounded. How did you come to these conclusions? I had him followed by a private detective, a high-tech guy I found at Radio Shack. Everything in the book is documented, Miss Couric. Or may I call you Katie? Or may I just call you? When the interview was over, I turned the television off and lay back on the fluffy bed and stared at the bedside clock, trying to speed up time with my mind. But time went on as usual, so I fell asleep and for exactly 9 minutes, and then woke up and tried not to blink until about 20 minutes to 8, which is when I headed downstairs. In the lobby, I asked the man at the front desk which room the seminar was in. I leaned against the desk as the concierge. You can't see it. Never mind. Anyway, a 20-something fellow with a goatee searching for. My dad texted me. A 20-something fellow with a goatee searching for a room schedule among his papers. Capturing literature for the glory of God? The man asked suspiciously, reading the name of the seminar from a sheet of paper, looking up at me as if to ask whether or not this was the seminar I was interested in, and also perhaps why God was trying to capture literature for His glory. That's the one, I said to him. Interesting name for a conference, isn't it? He said, looking at me with a smile. We can't have literature running around doing anything it wants, now can we? I told him. I don't suppose so, he said for a long and uncomfortable pause. And where will we be capturing said literature, I asked. By this I was asking what room we were in. He looked at me puzzled. What room are we in? I clarified. Oh, he said, and looked back at the sheet. You're in conference room 210, which is just down the hall across from the restrooms. Perfect, I said, adding that if he saw people in the lobby reading pagan literature, to please notify me. Certainly, he said to me, confused, but kind of standing at attention all the same. I remember having a very good feeling that morning, walking down the big hall towards the conference room, once again believing I was on my way to becoming the next great spiritual writer, a sort of evangelic Deepak Chopra crossed with Tom Clancy. I suck with names, sorry. Or that guy who wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull, or Ansel Adams, or whoever, just somebody famous. I had terrific ideas. I really did. I was going to write a story about a nun who takes over small third-world countries by causing their evil dictators to fall in love with her, leaving a trail of megachurches and democracy in her wake. The book was going to be called Sister Democracy Show Some Leg. I had another story about a guy whose father, a psychology professor at a prestige university, raised his son in a maze, rewarding him when he crawled down dark hallways and disciplining him when he crawled down lit hallways, thus teaching him how to do everything in life counterintuitively. In the story, the kid grows up to be a kind of a genius with an enormous following, people hanging on his every word. The book was going to be called Maze Boy, How One Man Brought Down the United States Postal Service. And if it were a Christian novel, I would easily turn it into a Christian novel if the money was right. And I was going to call it Maze Boy, How One Man with God's Help Brought Down the United States Postal Service. So that's just the little first part. I'm sorry I messed up a couple times. But anyway, I love you and I just wanted to read to you.